call the August 10th, 2021 meeting of the Wenatchee School Board to order and ask that you would stand and join us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda, which includes minutes of the January 21st board workshop, the June 21st workshop, June 22nd regular meeting, vouchers and payroll, personnel report, enrollment and financial report, contracts and policies. For a second read, those policies were discussed at the last board meeting. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move for approval of the consent agenda as written.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Right off the bat, next up, we have citizen comments. This is a time in our board meeting when we ask members of the public to address the board. I have a couple of forms of people who have signed up to comment this evening. If you are intending to comment and you have not yet filled out a form, you can get one from Kim over at the table in the back of the room. And otherwise, I will call the ones that I have. Are there any in the room, Kim?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have them. So we ask that you limit your comments. Go ahead, Don. You can limit your comments to 3 minutes. And then just state your name and your address before you begin your comments. And if you'll watch Kim, she's got the iPad with the timer over there.
Hi, Kim. Hello, my name is Don Carroll, and I live just north-south of us at 10 Harrison Street. So hello, Dr. Gordon and school board members. And I just want to say again, I always appreciate the opportunity to have a thoughtful and respectful discourse with you all. Thank you. So at the last board meeting I attended, which was in June, I spoke on CSE. And part of my, and again, thank you for letting me speak at the last minute, part of my hurried presentation was to highlight the thorough, orderly, and consensus-driven CSE document that the Eastmont School District produced. I also noted that their product was highlighted in the Wenatchee World and was easily accessed on their website. I had to ask a friend of mine who came with me to confirm. We remember Dr. Gordon in the January 12, 2021 meeting. This group discussed and approved a document just like the Eastmont document. And I have that in quotes if anybody would like to see the paper. However, when I went online to the online archive and meetings, I couldn't find any evidence that the discussion and a finished CSE document nor a vote on that said document could be found. So I believe the reason for the confusion in the last slide of the presentation on the January 12th document says that further work was needed, which may include community outreach. So I have my phone handy, and I'm almost done. If there's anyone on the board that has the link to the CSE document that was discussed and approved, as well as the voting record. Finally, where would I find a form which would allow students to be opted out of gender theory lessons, posters, print, and electronic media? And the reason that I'm asking is because parents throughout the state have a clear track record of being clear that parents want to be at the forefront of teaching and controlling sensitive content such as this. That's it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Don.
And since I got a whole minute left, I don't have anything left to say. Do you guys have that information online? And did we just miss that? The link to the CSE document? That was apparently voted on, approved and all that. And then is there an opt-out process?
For the,
For content or for lessons on CSE?
so what are the things that, I mean,
So
On the spot,
this is not an opportunity to have discussion with the board. So if Dr. Gordon knew the quick answer, I would allow him to answer that quickly, but If it's gonna lead to a discussion, then this is not the appropriate thing
Nope,
for that.
I was just looking for a link.
Yeah.
So if it's a fast thing, you guys already have my email address, and
Yep.
if somebody wants to do that, that's great, and I'm not looking for discussion, because I know that was just.
Yeah, no big deal.
I'm letting you have some of my time, this feels good to spend it out to you. There you go. All right, thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, so I have one more request to speak tonight, and this is a Zoom remote commenter. We have Joel Martin, I believe, online.
It'll take him a second to transfer over, but he should be able to jump on in a second.
And is that it, Kim, after that? Do we have? Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Joel, we can hear you. It's
Okay. Sorry. So my name is Joel Martin. I live at 508 South Franklin Avenue. I will try to keep under 3 minutes. My family recently all contracted COVID, so I'm a little labored breathing tonight. So I will try to make through my presentation under the limit. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I want to shift the discussion for a moment from the COVID pandemic to address a potential issue facing our district. The issue stems from the text of Wenatchee School District Policy 1210, which outlines the process of electing board chair and vice chair and sets the eligibility requirements to fill those positions. Currently, the policy allows first-year board members to serve as the president and vice president of the board. In 2017, 3 candidates ran on a unified platform to bring common sense back to the board and to fight for every student in our district. Upon appointment, the new board members eagerly went to work to get policy 1210 changed to allow newly appointed board members eligible for president and vice president. Many community members also sent emails supporting this change to the policy, citing fairness and equality. The current board chair put the vote forward, and the new power majority passed the changes and decided to elect 2 of the 3 to president and vice president. The policy update wasn't really about being fair or equal. It also wasn't about creating good board governance practices or acting in the best interest of the district. It was about fulfilling campaign promises to reverse decisions made in the prior school year. Holding the positions of president and vice president of the board meant the 3 newly elected members could prioritize their single issue platform in the majority of meeting agendas over the course of the next 2.5 years, which ended up leaching time, resources, and money from the district to please a select few, and even resulted in the district's longest sitting board member to resign because work was being sidelined in favor of continuous focus on this pet issue. It also brought divisive behavior between district staff, students, parents, and community members that resulted in a breakdown of the trust that the community had in our school board, teachers, and administrators. This breakdown didn't happen because of the issue itself or the policy change, but through repeated fractures in board governance, the single-minded focus on one issue over the course of 2 years, and the perpetuation of board practices that required multiple retrainings in the course of those members' tenure, all of which stemmed from the inexperience of these board members and their election to positions of power requiring proper board governance practices. As the president controls the direction and agenda of the board, this member must have a clear and unbiased approach to guiding the board and district to respond to the many needs of our district and across the many populations our district has. And like 2017, we currently find ourselves in an election focused on a few select issues. Those who will be elected onto the board will need a district-centered approach to ensure the district makes the best effort to meet the needs of all of our students. We should all be able to agree that our district, most notably our students, cannot afford repeated mistakes from the past. And the best way to keep it from happening is to amend the language in Policy 1210 so it appoints experienced and vetted board members to lead our district. It'll also allow new members the opportunity to be properly trained on board governance practices. I had hoped to push for this change if I was elected to the board, and even though I won't be serving on the board next year, I am here because I still feel this change is necessary to the future health of our district and the leadership that runs it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate your comments. Okay, so that will close the citizen comment portion of our meeting.
Thank you.
Michelle's
like,
the time to let us hear your voices. So we have a policy here at the school district regarding masking. And those who are fully masked, adults who are fully vaccinated are not required to wear masks. However, That changes as soon as we have a student who enters the room, and it's come to my attention that we have a young person who has joined us. And so we'd ask that the adults in the room, whether you are vaccinated or not, to please don your masks. And Ken has some paper masks available if you do not have one with you. Thank you so much for your cooperation. I appreciate that. Okay, moving along. Next on our agenda is a policy update, where we will be hearing our first read on policy 5250.
Thank you, Laura. Tonight, the board will be discussing one policy and procedure for first read, and that is policy and procedure 5252, staff expression and political activity. The need of the review of this policy came from controversy surrounding the posting of a gender diversity sheet on a teacher's bulletin board. We engaged our legal counsel and worked through a process of developing or further expanding upon the current policy. The current policy is a WASDA policy, but it was pretty general, and there was no procedure. And for those in the community, procedure is kind of how do we act upon the policy itself. So there was no procedure within the district. So we engaged legal counsel to work through developing a modified policy and then a brand new procedure. A couple highlights that I would bring to the board and the community's attention. I think when you really boil the piece down, I really see the importance for the board, the superintendent, to recognize our staff's, our employees' ability to express themselves and engage in political activities, so long that it does not interfere or conflict with the performance of their duties for the school district. And when I look at paragraph 3, I think it really summarizes it well on the policy. And I'm just going to read directly from it. At all times, including off campus, district staff should take care to avoid conduct that may interfere with their ability to perform their duties consistent with district policies and procedures, or that would foreseeably cause a disruption to the operation of the school. So to me, that's really where we're at, where we're talking about that disruption within a school, and making sure that we have clarity to our staff around district voice and staff voice. And what does that look like for a staff member to make sure they're feeling very comfortable in this space. Within the procedure itself, it does a nice job, I think, of laying out the roles or responsibilities. If you're an employee, that employee aspect, you really need to recognize that it is on the staff side or within buildings. It happens in communication, be it emails, be it classroom decor, district property, email signatures, posters, stickers, signage, all of those different pieces are ways we express ourselves. And under 3A, I think the procedure really helps to define that. What does that look like? Consistent with district policy, it is permissible for staff to use such channels of communication only for messaging that is curricular, approved by the district's official position and/or message, or respectful personal expression on non-controversial issues. We also have a controversial issues policy as well that defines that. But it really, I think, between the policy and procedure, creates a clear pathway for our staff so they know where their lane is. And from the district's voice, what does the district support? And what does the district push forward as their official position, their official message? So with that kind of overview, I would hand it to the board members. The board members have seen this, and I would just turn it back over to Laura and the board.
Thank you. Paul, anybody want to begin this discussion? Any comments?
Well, I just want to say I appreciate our district is going down this road. I'm glad that we have a constitutional lawyer who has kind of drawn up this language. I appreciate that they have the background to lay this out in a way so that our district is laying out what is appropriate and what's not. I do have a question in the third paragraph at all times, including off campus and
In
I
the
know-
policy, sorry,
in the policy.
thank you.
So I understand if something is on campus in a school building or a school-related event, that's pretty easy to kind of manage. But I do question how that will be enforced in an off-campus setting, if you want to
Yeah, great question.
expand. Thank you.
So district employees, it's hard to take off your district employee hat. It just is. And in the world of social media, it's even more challenging to take off your district hat. So the district office would never get on social media and search people. That would never, ever occur within the district. But what it does mean is if somebody were to report something, we would look into it and have, if it came to a controversial issue, we would have a respectful conversation with that staff member, but that's what it means. Again, district office is not scanning Facebook, not looking at Twitter, Instagram, or whatever else is out there, but that's how that would be applied. We're always wearing our district hats as the superintendent, as any other employee, just as board members, you always end up having that board hat on. Julie?
I was gonna say, I think it's important to remember in that paragraph too, we've also said that the conduct needs to interfere with the district
you.
operation. So in addition to, yeah, especially in a social media society, it's very difficult to separate your hat. In our law practice, we have a thing where we say, in this area, we have to act lawyerly because I can't take off my professional hat sometimes. And I think with public employees too, you're under a different microscope anyway, because we're always still subject to Public Records Act, whether, regardless of what capacity you're in, if you're a public employee talking about public business, you're subject to some form of legal requirement anyway. So I'm comfortable with it in that it's, it's clearly got to be conduct that occurs, that you're just, acting inappropriately in such a way that interferes with your ability to work for the district or do district work and is being brought to the attention of management versus management going out and seeking it. And I think one of the important things that I like, even though we don't look at procedures as part of a policy review, because this was so new, what I like in there is that, it says it could be up to termination, but everybody knows if you're a union employee, you've got various levels of protection. So it's not like, oh, you make one bad post, you're done. So to the extent anyone's got any concerns about that, that's, unfounded. But having this, what was important to me in this was the kind of the complaint process or the review process. Having the ability to say, somebody brought it to my attention that it's controversial, maybe we can have another look at it, or was this pre-approved? So we can just have that dialogue before saying, no, you're absolutely entitled to it, and I don't care what you think. Having the ability to have that conversation and that oversight. My only question concerns, I know my recommendation for change to the policy was, and I guess I was looking at it in the lens of, we've identified something as controversial. It's already maybe been approved by the superintendent or designee. It's been posted, somebody is still upset or complains about it. To me, it makes sense to then, I know the board does not want to get involved in minutia, but if the superintendent's already approved it and now we're complaining something further, there should be a different decision maker in that process. So that was why I think my original suggestion was having a further complaint appeal per se, go to the board, so the board would say, yeah, yay or nay, it can stay. I know that's not. And I think it was in the spirit of you attach the curriculum review policies, and I think it was in the spirit of how the curriculum review appeal process works as well. So that was my only suggestion, because it had assumed it had already gone to the superintendent for some level of review. So having the superintendent make the decision twice didn't make a lot of sense. So that was my only. Everything else you incorporated, I'm reasonably comfortable with. So.
And Julie, I think that one is addressed in procedure 4220, where it talks in D. The board shall attempt to make a final resolution of the matter. Any formal action by the board must take place at an open meeting. So it really is talking about at that highest level. Kind of that third on the last page. Talking about there is a process, but that the board in some instances, it should be elevated to that level. So we can clarify that a little bit better if need be.
Yeah, maybe in subsection 3 of the procedure, where you've got any event complaints from other staff, we could put something in there that's already gone to the superintendent or been already been approved by the superintendent, then it goes to the board.
Okay.
In that limited circumstance.
Thank you.
So the staff that drew this up, the constitutional lawyer, have they seen the revisions since?
No, we were waiting for after tonight to see what other additional pieces the board wanted to speak about, and then we would send that. And then it would be back here for the August 24th for final review and hopefully approval.
Yeah, I would just appreciate if that person or team, whoever's doing it, because I don't want redundancy or too wordiness.
Yeah.
I know policies can be a little bit shorter than the procedure, so I would appreciate if they looked at some of the extra words that were added to see if everything is necessary.
We will.
Okay, I'm going to go in probably a lot softer and more complicated. I am very glad that we took legal counsel into this because it is extremely complex with many, many dimensions. And I guess I'm going to leave with two things. I would really like to see us, before we go further, basically have a legal flow chart because we refer cross references between multiple policies. And I think, personally, I think that we need to go back and not go to the final reading of this. I think we need to go back and clean up what we've got. Even though the concept may be roughly right for everybody, the details may not be what we want. I think there's that kind of legal design. And I'll just throw out some kind of examples. If you look at our policies, we have the 3000 series, which are students, and the 5000 series, which are staff. Students, for the most part, are under 18 and their guardianship of parents and other people. And there's a different aspect of their freedom of expression and who is their custodian from staff. We have a couple of policies that I noticed on harassment and bullying, for example, where at one time we had two completely different ones. We had sexual harassment separate from the other, and then we seem to be writing them. Those are things that one presume everybody has equal rights to. And those are examples of what I see as some of the issues that I think we need to look at. Going to what I think we've got here is being careful about the extent to which, well, I'm just going to write to the one, what is the definition of controversial? And actually, in one of our policies that isn't referred to, I wrote it down somewhere, it's considered by a large portion of the community to be controversial. That's so I think that the superintendent and his designee are going to be dealing with something that is not quite black and white, which is why it's very, very important that we look at the other things. So rather like we discussed on campus and off campus, there's the expectation that you will not disrupt or interfere. But the fundamental thing that's more important is that it conflicts with performance and it conflicts with the district's mission. So that's one area. And I'm saying these that are there, but I think it is potentially fragile unless we really go and map it out really, really well. So you can go from one document to another and know. And Julie, I wrote down cross-ref 4220 on the front policy. But then we need to make sure that that cross-reference is really there. And I know that we want to do this properly. So I want to mention that. And I think the other thing is the word interfere on this discussion, as far as I'm concerned, conflict is clear. It disrupts. interference in where we're trying to have a certain amount of academic expression and freedom and a tiered situation, that may need to be substantial. And I know some of the comments we had are different from that. So these are issues that I think need to be gone through. This is a really good honest start, I think, and that's where I will put. I sort of rate. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at a lot of things that are not quite yet in place.
I'll just piggyback off Martin. Part of our strategic plan is one of our priorities is the thriving environment. So, creating welcoming spaces where individuals flourish, our city value feel safe and know they belong. And in here, in the second paragraph, this includes an obligation to maintain an environment that is free from discrimination, prejudice, facilities, etc. So I think we need to step back a little bit and really make sure that this aligns with the board's mission, promise, values, so that they could work together. One of the other things that I noticed is just for consistency in the policy, the last sentence, any violation of this policy may result in disciplinary action, and then the procedure, it goes into specific reprimand or dismissal. I would like to see some consistency in that language, preferably with the policy says.
And I think one of the other things that I forgot to mention is I think in our existing policies, we have more clarity with curriculum and instruction than with expression. And so that as we look at this policy, when we put expression in, which is part of what the issue is concerned, that those two different realms can either use the same stepwise criteria to have an orderly process when somebody complains, and how to handle it fairly and openly and justly. And it may not be quite the same. I think there's more authority for the district and there's more structure in the approval system, and there's more structure for dealing with controversial items than we start with on expression. And whether we completely leverage that, I think needs a good pair of eyes and legal counsel as well at the end of the road.
So the board has had this policy for a few days, maybe a week to review, and we all had the opportunity to read it and to look, into do our own research. So for me, I read the policy first and then read all the policies that are referenced in the document and tried to see how they related back and forth to each other, and then also compared those. Washington State School Directors Association offers us model policies, and for the most part, our district follows or adopts those model policies as our own, and sometimes we adjust them based on our own personal preferences. But I did find a couple of things in those cross references that weren't quite right, and I did bring those to Paul's attention. I think we've all seen those in our emails. It looked like there was a student policy regarding bullying and harassment that was adopted on the staff section. And so we kind of need to make sure, like Martin said, about making sure that we get those alignments in place. Also, in the review of the where'd that go? Okay, in policy number 2331, controversial issues, it talks about the students being notified in advance in the event the speaker's topic is to be controversial. And we talked quite a bit about parent involvement, and I really feel that the parents ought to be added to that group of folks who are notified when a controversial speaker is to come along. I hope that it's not so that we can pull students out of controversial dialogues, because I think it's a great part of our democracies is to have civil discourse on topics that make us uncomfortable. I think that's healthy for us to do that. And I hope that when we add parents to the policy, which I assume that we're going to do, that parents will take it as an opportunity to carry that dialogue from the school setting into their own families, so that they can have, a healthy conversation about whatever the topic is and why our family or I as a parent feel the way I do and why other people might feel differently. Because the thing is that we will never, ever, ever have a world where we all agree 100% about everything. We still have to live together. So let's do it the best we can. I think this is a good start and something, a little bit more work to
Sounds
do.
good.
Okay.
Great feedback, board. I'll take that and we'll bring you back another revised version.
I just want to add to the board's comment. I think that goes into the, the district, we have a district that respects and values each person's perspectives. And so, so we need to look at not just policies or sensitivity, but all the other adjusted policies, attached policies. Again, with that lens that we all bring individual or personal values, and we need to be inclusive in that while looking at it.
And I think the big focus on this is when it rises to that level of distraction or we're, moving away from our mission because we're addressing these types of issues that we shouldn't really need to be addressing. And so I think it's important to have these kind of guidelines on how we're going to process these things when they come. As I said, I thought it was really important to have the kind of complaint process and we say, no, this has been reviewed, this has been vetted, this is just part of healthy dialogue versus this is really becoming interference or something like that. So my question now, though, is we have an existing policy that's allowed us to get distracted in some ways. So what does the beginning of the school year look like if we haven't adopted this? Can we put some type of moratorium in place to say, I don't want to presume we're going to start with problems, but I want permission to really be getting kids back and focusing on school.
The board has policies or policy driven. So until that policy is revised, that's the policy that we're working from. But I do see your point.
Right, and
I
that's
think
what I
it helps.
understand, is it the existing policy just kind of, I know it stands until we do something about it. It sounds like this isn't gonna be quite ready, let's hope to kind of get to the ground running.
I'll do my best to make sure that it meets what I heard the board say and try to get that turned around in a timely fashion so we can. Best practice would be on the evening of the 24th that we approve it, and then I'm able to communicate with staff on the 25th, this practice, but it will be just the timing of all of it. But as it currently stands, that is the current policy we have.
All right. For the conversation.
I guess I just wanted to say something about the nature of the work and our community, actually. I found that, as I said, this is complex. And as Laura said, she read it and went through, and I did the same thing. But I found that the comments of other people took me to additional realizations. So I realized that we want to move fast, but I think anybody trying to solve this in isolation is not going to see the whole playing field. So I think that's the point we're going to make. First, I want to just thank the policy committee and the district and our attorney for the work they've done, because I think it's a very good work and difficult work. And I think part of what this is why I want to say it, I think we need to go out. I almost didn't say this. We must, this is something that's different. We must face the facts, even the ones we don't like. So I think in dealing with this, there's a lot of individual development, and it's always going to be a little bit fuzzy. So I think we need to work hard. And this is part of that process. I just wanted to stress that it's multifaceted.
That's a really good point, and maybe I didn't say this clearly enough, but typically when the board reviews policies, we have a committee. And then the committee has sort of a schedule, like we're gonna do these, because there are a lot of policies and it's a big job. And it's not all that fun. So this one, rose, to the level of getting a lot of attention in the community, or the events that caused us to look at this probably got a lot of attention. So, the superintendent felt, rightfully so, that it ought to be done with input from the entire board from the get-go. We always have input on all the policies, but typically we start with a committee and then go out. So this time we started with the whole board, And have gotten a lot of public comment, and I know that we've all read those comments or listened to those comments as we've heard them in the community and taken those to heart. And so this is a much broader process than it typically is. Just want you to be aware of that. Okay, so now moving on to board communication. This is the time of the board meeting when board members share with others anything that has come up between the last meeting and today. Is there anything any board member would like to share this evening?
Yeah, I'll start. So last week I was on the radio with Untitled, specifically with Untitled, talking about return to school and student safety and parent concerns and all of that stuff. So a great platform to inform our parents for the start of the school year. We need to continue doing the work with our Latinx community and, go beyond the paper, social media avenue. And I also want to just acknowledge and recognize all the summer school staff. Oh my gosh, that was such an awesome post to read of the success of our students in reading and math. I think at the district, I think this has been the first in a long time where summer school has been open to any student that wanted to attend or that whose parents felt the need that their child needed to attend. Not always the student's primary choice. But yeah, to see such high levels of success in reading and math is just, you got to commend the staff, classified, certificated, and the leadership. So thank you.
Anyone else?
So I just wanted to chime in. I know we all receive a lot of board emails from a lot of national groups, including the National School Board Association. Just a reminder, they have an equity conference online. In the stage of COVID, we have a lot of online offerings. And so I believe September 9th is an upcoming equity talk. So just to put it on your radar, and there are other things as well, but if you're not getting the NSBA emails, let me know, because I'll make sure that you can get on their list. They have lots of interesting things. Thanks.
I'll go. I have a happy board communication, so let's do that. Sometimes your school board work is good. Yesterday, I sat between 4 board members of an organization called YASA, or the Young Adult Education Trust, and the representatives of the school district who are responsible for upgrading and implementing our financial literacy program. So what is financial literacy? Students need to be competent to apply logical reasoning, quantitative skills, and have the basic knowledge of the most important parts of personal finance and how they work. It's a self-defense survival skill that benefits all students of all kinds. And there's a lot of evidence, particularly in the last 10 years, all around the world, where this has been incorporated in the program, that you see substantial improvement in the economic health of people 5, 10, 15 years after they graduate from high school. So who are YASET? They're a local foundation. They serve all 29 North Central ESD school districts, and they've been around for, I think, nearly 2 decades doing good work. If I want to talk about Washington State, we're wonderful. We've got standards, but absolutely no support in our state. There was an article which rated the 50 states, and we were kind of in the middle. At least we had standards. So if you want to do financial literacy, you know what they are, but we don't have any real help and development. So everything has to be developed by going out and getting partners, local initiatives. So we have the school district local, we have YASET local, and they work together. It's taken 18 months since the dialogue began, working together, and it's going to take a couple more years to actually implement that fully. And I want to say this, so this is hard work, good work. It's the kind of thing that goes on, and it's not a fancy story, but it's really important. So financial literacy, that's a good example, and it's going to take more of it. And this is a start, because it's going to be a graduation requirement. And so basically the objective is to get into graduation standards, the education, so that students can be safe when they go out into the world financially. And it can be taught as a standalone course, and the district is working how to do this, or you can incorporate it in career and technical education And if you do that, it's quite exciting. And this district's working on it where taking care of my own personal finances is not too different from if I'm going to go into a small business or a sole proprietor career as a craftsman or an artist or an engineering technician, and know how to set up my own business safely. And so this is the kind of work that they're developing, and it's really integrates very well citizen skills and all of these others. And so it was just really nice, and I wanted to share that with the community. So I got the joy of sitting in between these two groups, a partnership that can do this good work over a long term for the students.
So the other piece I was gonna add, and maybe Paul, you'll get to it in your update report, but the questions I had is what, largely what does return to school look like? What's the learning recovery program? Those are things that I'm nervous because I can't answer them very clearly, so I'm hoping that that's kind of what we're receiving today. The other piece is I know, and I finally reached out and sent Paul an email asking about the launch to learn, because we finally got some information, the 1 hour on site, and I asked, well, are we gonna do anything like last year where students got to meet with their teachers and whatnot beforehand? I thought that was really successful, but it sounds like that's not in the cards, and I've been asked, so I figured for transparency, just putting it out there that I think we tried. I appreciated the response, but I'm disappointed in a way because as a parent, thought that was really, really successful, and I'd like to see in future years. I understand where we're at with meeting conferences, midterms, and whatnot, but to the extent we want to execute on the mission or strategic plan, I think doing that onboarding early was really helpful to some, and so I'd like to see that work its way in. I was hopeful, but it doesn't sound like it's happening this year.
Okay, thank you, board members. So now we move on to the superintendent's report, and he'll be giving us a COVID funding update.
Oh, your COVID funding report is just attached. That was attached, but I'm going to give you an opening. Schools, August 25th, full return for students, if parents selected to be at WIA. Excited about our WIA and the work that's going on there at the Internet Academy. Julie alluded to last year, we did the Launch to Learn, where, especially for our elementary students, we had about a week where students were able to come in, meet one-on-one with their teacher, have the student at times, the parent, the guardian, working with the teacher. However, we are under very different rules and regulations. That was during a time where attendance looked very differently. If we saw a student, if we engaged a student for a small period of time, that was considered attendance. Our rules now are back to the typical rules of attendance for students. So it doesn't give us that same opportunity and flexibility that was afforded to us at the beginning of last year. And that really is the number one reason, because we heard from board members, we heard from parents, what a great opportunity it was. However, that came with a relaxation of how to count student attendance, which is very different now than it was then. So that's the main piece of it. So we're going back to a more traditional kind of meet and greet with your teacher that we posted out there. The other piece that we're talking about, and a lot of this is in the March 2nd update that Mike Lane, the Learning and Teaching Department, presented to the board back then around our acceleration and recovery plan. And it's really based off of research from the TNTP and the McKinsey Group and the Center for Educational Effectiveness. A number of different researchers have come out and said, what's the best way to do this work? And it really is around an acceleration plan, but they have 4 action points. The leveraging student performance data. So one of the things that we're working on right out of the gate is making sure that our students are assessed. So we know where they're at. So we know their level in the areas of literacy and numeracy. And based off of that, the diagnostic, the progress monitoring, the formative assessments, the team work together to really provide a systemic intervention tool for our students. The best thing that we can do is know exactly where each student is at and be able to support that student in this work. We use our iReady Math, we use our Lexia computer adaptive software to really engage our students and to make sure that we know where each student is at as we return. Number 2 is that ensure all students have access to grade appropriate assignments. This is that acceleration. The research is really clear here. We don't want to make sure that we're lowering the bar for our students. Actually, it's more important that we raise the bar for our students. We accelerate the learning, but that we're very focused on the essential standards we want our students to know, understand, and be able to do. In that March 2nd PowerPoint, there are links to that Sarah Wall and others created around what are those essential standards in the literacy and numeracy, and making sure that our staff really know this is where we're focused on and what we're doing. Ensuring that our teachers have time to work together to really know our students and to be able to respond accordingly. We know the effect size of teachers when they work together on that common outcome for our students. It is one of the biggest game changers in academics. Outdoes social economic impacts at homes. It outdoes just about every other issue that a student may bring to the school. When we work together collectively as educators for the good of students, we continue to improve outcomes for our kids. Making sure that we continue our, Maria, you highlighted in our summer school, we saw some gains in math and literacy in those areas. Part of that is around the work that we did about 6 months once I got here, was really looking at how we teach literacy, how we support our teachers around the areas of literacy. And we're now doing that in the areas of mathematics to support educators. So they are the best individuals to be able to respond in the moment with the best research-based practices we use. Next piece is around the social emotional learning, continuing to support our students. We were a community-wide leader in our well-being project, working with parents, community members, partnering with Confluence Health, Catholic Charities, and others to really provide a well-being project. But really working with our students, making sure that they're good. When we know our kids feel safe when they walk into our classrooms, when they walk into our schools, they're able to learn at a much higher rate. We know that to be true. We know the research behind that. In addition to that, our CFO mentioned this earlier, continue to support at the elementary level with our student support services individuals, 6.5 FTE at the elementary level, really recognizing how important it is to continue that connection with our kids and to continue to be there for our students, continue to have middle school and high school counselors and social workers in support of that. We expanded our summer school. We doubled, if not tripled, the amount of students who participated. As Maria said, it was open to all. In past, we followed different grants that allowed us to bring some students in. This allowed any parent to bring in their students. So we're really excited about that. We think we're going to be able to extend that again into next summer to extend that offer to our community. And we're working hard on expanding our tutoring options for all students. So really, when you think about the first piece I talked about, data, where are students at, and really working with our students during the school day, making sure they're supported, they have the necessary interventions and support, but also before or after school support as well, with expanding tutoring options. Jeanette mentioned this earlier. We're looking at different grants as well. The 21st Century Grant is one that we use a lot for tutoring. We're going to be applying for an additional grant. but we're also looking at different avenues with our own staff in addition to those, adding on additional tutoring with our own staff, and then going beyond that, because we want to make sure it's equitable across our organization, that students have access to tutoring, but as I said, that it's tied to the direct standards, to direct skill that the student needs. We really want to be skill focused and outcome based, so our kids continue to grow and continue to get better. So it's a comprehensive plan based off of the research on what works best and us following it through. So excited about it, excited to have our students back, staff come back, a vast majority next week. We'll be welcoming them, and then the door is open for all of our students on August 25th. Now we're
Great. So that concludes our school board member meeting for this evening, and I will officially adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.